What's up, y'all? We're going to cover men's bodybuilding posing right now so that you can better decide whether this is the right category for you to compete in and if you're ready to wear one of these.
All right, looking good. Thank you, Cole. Coming out for a courtesy pose as well. Number 84.
Okay, so let's jump right into the symmetry round. Now, what the symmetry round is it's just 4 different poses, a relaxed pose to the front, to each side, and to the rear. And it's kind of the joke in bodybuilding. There is nothing relaxed about this pose. It is anything but. Because nothing escapes it. You can see everything on the front side of the athlete's body. And this is the pose that you default to between other poses. So in a lot of ways, it's actually the most important, even though it's the most basic. And in my opinion, it's the least fun out of all of them. There's nothing exciting about a front relaxed pose, but it's where we got to start because the judges are going to figure out what athletes have the best conditioning and what athletes have the best balance overall. We're not looking for muscularity so much yet as we are overall balance. Do the legs match the mass of the upper body and vice versa? So the judges are going to say quarter turn to the right. And when they do that, you simply turn to your right about 25% of the way all the way around. And you're going to crunch down on your obliques. You want your front foot the way that I was taught, just slightly in front of your rear foot, but some coaches advocate having both of your feet side to side. The judges don't really seem to care in my experience of the shows, but I like to have my my front leg just a little bit further forward than my back because then I can squeeze my legs together. Little trick, and it makes that hamstring pop out a little bit more. You want to make sure you're displaying your lats. And don't forget to flex your tricep on the back side. That's something that my coach was always on me about. And then this is the rear relaxed pose. The judges are looking at your glutes. The best way to engage your glutes on a rear relaxed pose or any type of back pose, because the glutes are always visible from the back, is to think of yourself as doing like a Romanian deadlift. And having someone in the crowd that can tell you when they're engaged and when they're not is also helpful. My wife is always on top of that because she knows these poses at least as good, if not better than I even do, and could probably even teach them better than me. But she'll yell out Colt glutes if my glutes aren't engaged, or Colt hamstrings if my hamstrings aren't engaged. There's a lot of thoughts going through your head when you're on stage. And so these are all things to keep in mind on the back pose. All right, and then the quarter turn to the right again is going to point you in the opposite direction of the previous side pose. That brings us back around to the center. Okay, now they're going to call for a front double bicep pose. This is now the muscularity round. They're comparing to see who has the biggest biceps. And also in a front double bicep pose, they're actually paying a lot of attention to the quads and to your lat spread. They want to see who has the smallest waist, whose lats are spreading out the most. Of these 3 athletes here, myself being on the far left, by the way, the tape is from a foot injury. If you want to hear the full story on that, you can go check out the vlog or listen to my interview with Robert Sykes, the Keto Savage. Talked about the whole story on that podcast. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But you can choose between crunching down on your abs or doing a vacuum like what I'm doing. I prefer the vacuum personally because my abs look 10 times better and I look 10 times leaner doing a vacuum pose. Also, it makes my waist look a lot smaller, and you can see the other 2 athletes are kind of doing the same thing. All right, now we're going to go into a front lat spread. Now the judges are really looking at who has the smallest waist and who has the widest lats. When it comes to back anatomy, there's 2 aspects to it. You got to remember there's thickness and there's width. They're looking for width here. This is where it shows who's been doing the pull downs, who's been putting in the effort into those lower lats, and who's been putting in the conditioning, because we're looking at conditioning on every single pose still. Last thing is you want to make sure that you have your biceps engaged. That's one thing that's easy to forget on the front lat spread, but it's the last thing you want to do. Every pose starts from the ground up, so you're going to set your legs, set your midsection, and then your biceps are the last finishing touch. Then they're going to ask for a side chest. They're going to ask you to spin a quarter turn to your right, depending on the judge, or sometimes they'll just ask you to pick your whatever is your favorite or your best side chest. When they give me the choice, I always like to show my right side because I have better vascularity and I look leaner. Typically with the stage lighting and the tan and everything from the right side. So that's usually my go-to. All right, the side tricep pose. They're obviously looking for the triceps as well as the chest and everything else that you can see from the front. This is something to where you want to get nice and low and make sure that your hamstrings are engaged and that your calves are engaged as well. And this is also very revealing to who's been putting the work in their midsections. I train my obliques hard, and so it's very, very rewarding at the end of a cut because you can't tell a difference in the off season. But the side tricep pose is one that really highlights the obliques of the athlete. Okay, this is a back double bicep pose. Now, again, the glutes, you want to make sure those are engaged. It doesn't look like my glutes are as well engaged as they were earlier in the symmetry round. I was probably more focused on my back on this one. There's like 100 different things that you got to keep in mind depending on the athlete and depending on what your strong points and your weak points are. Making sure that my glutes are, first of all, conditioned, but also properly engaged is something that I've been working on a lot this last season. So they're looking for back thickness here. Remember, we were talking about back width earlier. Now we're talking about how thick your back is, how much muscle is on your back. This is the kind of muscle you get by doing deadlifts, by doing heavy rows, by doing upper back work, and even you can tell who's been putting in work in the bench press and in the overhead press department, because the front deltoids, they peak up over the top, kind of like mountain peaks by your bicep peaks on the back double bicep, which is one of the cool things about this pose. And you want to make sure that your triceps are developed enough to be able to, like they should be hanging like that gentleman in the middle. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that both of these athletes beat me. And so this is the reason why. My back is good. My width is okay. And it actually looks like it's wider than the other two athletes, but they have thicker backs than I do. And they also have much bigger triceps, and you can really see it here from the back. Okay, now we're going to do a rear lat spread. And this is where the judges are looking for width more than they are thickness. So it's basically just like the front lat spread, but now you're getting a view from the back to take another look and see who has the best lat width. Okay, now they're going to call for an abdominals and thighs. They're looking for conditioning here. I am not a fan of this one personally in the bodybuilding department because it's just a weak one for me. Now, in classic physique, if I can do a vacuum, great. That's a different story. Getting those lower abs to pop, for me personally, it requires perfect water manipulation, perfect timing, and the stars usually have to be aligned properly for that to work. But boy, oh boy, that gentleman on the left side, he's got the quads, he's got the midsection. Absolutely hell of an athlete. It was an honor being on stage with him. And so what the judges are looking here for right here, obviously, is who has the best ab development and who has the best quad development. And then they're going to ask for a most muscular pose. Usually they just ask for a most muscular pose of your choice. And so on the far left, you can see the gentleman that I believe he's the one that won, doing a hands clasped most muscular pose. I prefer the crab, which is what I'm doing on the far right. And it's always a crowd pleaser too. I mean, come on, you can't do that one without smiling. Typically, they don't ask for what your favorite pose is, but If they do, try to throw out something that you know is your strong point that makes you appear better than the other athletes. And then at the very end, at finals, typically, they give you the opportunity to pose to 1 minute to any music of your choice. Hey, gentlemen, thanks so much for watching this tutorial. I really, really hope and pray that it helped. The next one is going to be on classic physique. And so by the end of the second video, you should have a really good idea of the differences between bodybuilding and classic physique, so you can have a better idea of which one flatters your physique more, which one you're more built for, which one you're more competitive in, and really what you like, what you prefer. What do you want your physique to look like? All right. You have a better idea of what bodybuilding is. Next, we're getting into classic physique, and from there, we're going to go into bikini. We're going to go into women's physique, men's physique, until we've pretty much covered all the categories that either I've competed in or that our competitors have competed in. So, again, thanks so much. Love you a lot. Oh, one last thing. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. The way to do that is to hit that subscribe button. Obviously, it's going to turn into a bell icon, though, and you want to make sure that you hit that bell as well, because that's going to notify you when these future videos come out. Cool? All right. Any feedback or comments that you have is very, very much appreciated. So go ahead and tell us whatever you think. Thanks so much. God bless you again. Have a good one. Bye-bye.